Hello, and welcome back to Coven, Season 4. This is a podcast where we commune with our dream coven and explore the archetype of the witch. I can't believe that we're already on Season 4. Every single season, every single episode, I feel more inspired, more comfortable, and more confident. And I just wanted to take a second before we begin this beautiful season to express my gratitude for everyone who has been here up to this point. I know it's been a slow and steady build with the momentum, with Coco and I both in grad school. We go as fast as we can, but I don't get the episodes out as quickly as I would like. And every single comment, every single view, every single like, every question means so much to both of us, genuinely. And it's just been really fun to watch strangers find us from across the internet. There's a small group of us at this point, but you guys mean a lot to us. So thank you for that. Second, I wanted to address the tone of Season 4. We have 2 episodes, well, technically 4 story episodes with some surprises in there, and then 5 interviews. 2 interviews are with professional perfumers, and 3 of the interviews are with one of the perfumers about the archetypal essences of the planets, because one of those perfumers is someone who Coco and I are working with to develop an archetypal fragrance line called The Planets, and it is set to be released in May next month, which is super exciting, but you'll hear more about that in these episodes. But for episode 1 of Season 4, we sat down with Mandy Aftel, the absolute legendary natural perfumer here in the Bay Area. She just released her latest book, Symbolorum, that has an oracle deck on the way. She is known for being essentially the person to bring back the art of natural perfumery and independent perfumery in the West. And she's incredibly iconic in so many ways, and I can't wait for you to meet her and learn all about her. She is full of wisdom, full of light, full of passion, and it was one of our favorite interviews to date. Without further ado, here's that episode. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Mandy Aftel into our coven. She is known for founding the Aftelier Perfumes and the Aftel Archive of Curious Scents out here in Berkley, California, Bay Area. She creates fragrance from pure botanicals and has led a renaissance in natural perfumery. She's also the author of several influential books, 2 of which I have. I got to visit the Aftel Archive of Curious Scents about a month ago, and I purchased this book, The Essence in Alchemy, which is so fascinating and essential to the world of perfumery, which is something that Coco and I are stepping into very soon, and it's really intimidating. And so being able to gain all this wisdom from Mandy has been really, really essential and beautiful. And then also, this is your 10th book that you've published?
It is.
Symbolorum, The Secret Wisdom of Emblems. So we're excited to dive into that. Thanks for being here, Mandy.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
All right. Well, to start out, we usually like to dive into our magic moments, any synchronicities or magical things that have happened. And I'll go ahead and start with that just to kick us off. Because I have a magic moment, which is just the fact that Coco and I have been getting our fragrance line put together. It's a fragrance line around the planets. It's a fragrance line that we're making with our perfumer friend who actually introduced us to you, Mauricio.
Yes.
Yes, he is a magician and so wonderful at what he does, and we're making a fragrance line with him around the planets. And I think that just this whole interview coming into place as we're developing these fragrances that are going to be launched in May.
Wow. Yeah. Congratulations. That's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
It's
I think
wonderful.
meeting you in that timeline is my magic moment. It just feels very synchronistic and aligned.
Well, same for me. Meeting you all in this moment where I'm and this book is slightly not in my area that I'm known for. It's very meaningful to me and feels very connected, but it also goes into witchcraft and bibliomancy and all kinds of magical things. So it feels very a magic moment for me to be here with both of you.
Amazing. Thank you.
I wish I had a magic moment, but I don't. So I was really glad that you did, Jenna, and you too, Mandy. I have a question for you, though. Can you say what bibliomancy is for those who might not know what that means?
It's using a book as kind of an oracle and just opening it up to it's a certain kind of book that gets called upon to do that activity. So it isn't every book. But the books they kind of are a little bit like the tarot deck, but they're in a book. In terms of you can just are an oracle and you can just go to them and find information or something about the spirit of the day or where you're at, just in a random way by just opening the book and reading.
Sounds
And it's
amazing.
usually short.
I love that. I like to do that with just random books that I have on my bookshelf. If I need a little spiritual message, my partner likes to do the Rumi quote, Rumi oracle, just
Yes.
opening to a random Rumi page.
Yes, absolutely. That's a kind of wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing, I think, when you do something like that randomly and it fits right into your life, which happens a lot if you're open to it.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So should we look at Mandy's chart?
Yes. Let's go and dive into it.
Have you ever had anybody read your chart before, Mandy, or is this the first time?
I have, and I had it done. I'm because I'm old. I'm in my 70s, so I had it done in my 20s, and I was living in Joshua Tree with the singer Donovan. Guys might know the song "Season of the Witch" and "Melody." I was living with him and his wife. I was researching a book on Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones. He's the one that died, and I did my first book was a biography of him, and it was just a very interesting, strange period in my life. And they took me to get my chart done to their friend, who was a very close friend of theirs, who was an astrologer. And I don't remember the chart. I don't remember what happened. All I remember was I was so young and such a mess. And looking like someone who would never be able to even tie their shoelaces rather than put their life together, truly. And it said I was going to be really successful and famous. And I thought it was a complete joke. I thought it was so crazy. And Linda and Donovan are always reminding me of that astrology reading because whatever it had in it pointed to something that I was not in touch with.
Do you feel like you're in touch with it now, though? Do you feel like you've grown into it and embody it more?
I don't know. I feel lucky. I feel shocked that I've become successful, truly shocked. But I feel very lucky that I get to pursue what I'm passionate about, and it keeps opening up in so many ways to me. I don't look at my life much from outside in. I look at it more inside out. So I just feel really lucky that I got to pursue these creative, marvelous things for so many years. That's how I feel.
Amazing.
Yeah, Coco, let's pull up her chart because that feeds in what you're saying, feeds in a lot to what I noticed in your chart, actually. That feeling of feeling like surprised that you found success and like having a hard time believing in your success is something that makes a lot of sense to me. When we look up there at the top of your chart, you have Pluto, Saturn, and Mars in Leo right on your midheaven over there. So your midheaven is the part of your chart that is the most visible, that is like the most seen. It's kind of your fruits of your tree of life that you give to the world. It's what is the most visible into the world. And it's all in Leo, which is really visible and expressive and creative, like that is like a midheaven in Leo is a placement of somebody who wants to be a star, who wants to be on stage. But you have it combined with Mars and Saturn and Pluto, which are all considered to be the malefics. Although Coco and I both, I think both Coco and I don't really prefer the term malefic because we don't like putting morality on planets at all. Um,
What does that word mean? The word you're saying, I can't make it out.
Usually,
malefic.
the way that people describe it or think of it as they reflect challenges in our life as opposed to as opposed to making things easy for us. However, I think Jen and I both think of it in the sense that even if we do have challenges, those might not necessarily be a bad thing in the long run because it in my opinion, I don't know how Jenna feels about this, but it draws our attention, it focuses our attention on a specific area in our life and we learn lessons and we grow. But
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The malefics are in contrast to the benefic planets, which the benefic planets are considered to be. Oh, yes, go ahead.
I don't know if you know, I was a psychotherapist for 30 years.
Oh,
oh,
right.
so you understand this then.
Well, I don't understand this chart, but I was a therapist for artists and writers for 30 years, and two of my books are about therapy. Uh,
Wow.
Okay.
but I work with creative people. But keep going. I just thought
Uh-huh.
I'd toss that in the mix.
No, that
Interesting.
helps a lot because a lot of like what astrology is, I feel is connected and reflects like Jungian um, uh, uh,
Yeah.
psychotherapy or psychoanalysis, the process of individuation and depth psychology.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah, and I do remember actually reading that about you, which is so fascinating and also makes sense with having Pluto in the 10th house in Leo, because Pluto is about transformation and death and rebirth, and 10th house is about profession and career, and Leo is about the creative, and so helping creative people through transformations and through death and rebirth and through those hard times. Um, yeah, super interesting. And so the malefic, as opposed to the benefic planets are considered to be Venus and Jupiter. And so these are planets of like um, abundance and good fortune in like traditional astrology. But really, it's kind of like these are the planets of ease and harmony, as opposed to the planets of like challenges and hard work. And so what I found really interesting about your chart is that you have this grand trine with Jupiter and Venus and Mars, kind of with Mars and Saturn and everything up there. And so, on one hand, with that grand trine with the benefics, it would seem like things just kind of work really easily for you. Like you have this harmonious creative flow that things just fall into place. But then, with that concentration of Saturn and Pluto and Mars, and they're all retrograde in your 10th house, it's like an uphill battle. It's like things just work out, but it's not because it was just handed to you. Things just work out, but it always feels like you're up against a wall. Does that
Huh.
feel,
Okay.
how does that show up for you in your life? Does that feel true at all?
Well, when I started making perfume, there was no one. I really, there was, when I wrote my book 20 some years ago, there was no natural perfume and there was not really much artisanal perfume either. So I follow my own star all the time anyway. I don't know if I'd say it was hard for me though. Even though it just, I don't know. I don't particularly think things have been hard for me, but I do work very hard at what I
Mhm.
do and I follow it out and I'm very thorough and I, jump in at the deep end. But I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I wouldn't say it's though, a challenge in any way to the outside world. It's just me following what it is I really want to do in the best possible way. If
Yeah,
that, if
I
that
would
makes
have
any sense, yeah?
I wouldn't have I actually, whenever I see grand trines, I think that things come easily to people with grand trines in their chart. Although I do see what Jenna's talking about with all three of these planets. They're not exactly the easiest planets in the world. We don't necessarily like look forward to these transits from these planets. Sometimes we do, but a lot of times we don't. But the fact that you have Venus right here, which Venus, the planet Venus is probably one of the planets that one of the archetypes that you would connect with the most, because Venus historically was associated with like perfumes and fine fabrics and jewelry and aesthetics, but it's also about relationships, and it's in the sixth house of work. So it makes perfect sense that you would be a therapist to people, because it's almost like relationships are a part of your work. And Pluto is also about, digging underneath the surface, trying to figure out what is going on with Saturn here in a very structured way, and your motivation, right here with Mars. And then trining Jupiter, which is not quite conjunct, but close to your moon. I would imagine too that it probably brings you comfort to do these things, and that they are very like embedded in your values, and that relationships, that you value them a great deal. Um, and and then of course down here you have Mercury, which is the planet of communication in your fourth house, that is directly opposing all of these planets right here. So it almost seems like talking to people about their relationships would be you're perfect for that. But also having to do with beauty and aesthetics, and things that are pleasing to the senses as well, because of your Venus right here in the sixth house. But again, it also is in the house of work, so it's like you like to do this as a vocation as well.
What are the two? Because they're first of all, the top one looks heavily populated. That's got those four big black things in it. And then the one next to the one where you were, that has the A and the S and something that looks like a key.
Oh
What's that?
yeah.
What's that one?
So
That
that is your ascendant. The AS marks your ascendant, which is your rising sign. That's what was literally rising on the eastern horizon at your time of birth. AS just stands for ascendant, which is the
Mm-hmm.
horizon line on the eastern horizon. And then the one that looks like a key is Chiron, which is an asteroid that orbits between Saturn and Uranus. And
Mm-hmm.
it represents the wounded healer. And Coco's been reading a lot about Chiron lately, so I'm sure this is fresh on her mind. But having Chiron on the ascendant is sort of like you wear, I feel like that's a placement of, I mean, you're a Scorpio rising, which generally is cards folded close to your chest until you feel really safe with somebody to be vulnerable. But with Chiron there, Chiron on the ascendant feels like somebody who wears their heart on their sleeve, who has like any sort of like wounding. You would maybe meet the world from this place of like softness and compassion more so than this hard exterior that Scorpio risings typically carry.
Do I have the Scorpio right? Are you referring to it? Because I have both of those things. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because it's in your first house. And also, just to add to what you were just saying, Jenna, too, with Neptune here in the 12th house in Libra, meeting people with that compassionate, relational, um, transcendence, in a way,
Mhm.
which is directly sextiling Pluto, which is transformation, kind of digging things up. So it's like, if I always say, like, if I didn't know you, I would think that you're spiritual and compassionate, and like to have conversations with people about vulnerable topics, coming from a compassionate, empathetic place.
Hmm. Yeah, that's probably true. It's very true. My years of being a psychotherapist, did that for 30 years, and and I liked it a lot. I found it a lot. I really just absolutely loved about it. But my life changed when I stopped. It was very hard to stop. And it was very hard for my clients for me to stop, but I did. And then moved more over time, more and more fully into perfume. So I kind of had two separate lives that way.
Hmm.
I didn't keep up that part of it at all, except sometimes when I teach my class. I dip
Sure.
back into that when I'm in the role of a teacher.
I also
Yeah.
wonder, Jenna, what you think about her Uranus here in Gemini in the eighth house. It's that looks like is at the very top of this kite formation that she's got
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
here.
Well, I was noticing the Uranus opposing Jupiter moon that felt pretty potent. Jupiter Uranus always feels so explosive and kind of manic. It's
Mhm.
like the energy of just so much creativity, so much energy, so much activity. And so having that in your natal chart is like just bursting with ideas and creative projects and just bursting with energy kind of at all times, like endless capacity for energy to do new things. So when you talk about having all these different lifetimes and having all these different projects that you just fully dive into, I see that a lot with the Uranus Gemini opposing Jupiter, which you're actually, that means you're about to go through your Uranus return, which is kind of fun.
What's
So
that mean?
few years. Coco, do you want to talk a little bit about
No, you
that?
brought it up, Jenna.
What's
Uranus
it
return.
doesn't sound good.
No, it is just a really Uranus is the planet that embodies an archetype of like Prometheus, among other things. But Prometheus is a good one to think of for Uranus. It's the rebel. It's the agent of chaos, but it's sort of a trickster in a way. It's very innovative. It's very provocative. It's the agent of change. It brought fire from the gods to the humans. It rebelled against the gods for the sake of innovation and also just for the sake of kind of fun. Like Uranus is very creative. It's very revolutionary. It's also the planet of the revolution. So it can be very chaotic and disruptive, but it can also just be really fun and exciting and enlightening. So going through your Uranus return, it takes about like 78 years, I want to say, to
I'm
make
coming
its
into
return.
it. I'm 77.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Wow.
So I think yeah, like 78 to 82 years or something in that window when you'll experience Uranus return. So people only get one in their lifetime. If they're lucky to live that long. And I think it's just a time of a like really deep reflection. And to me, it seems like it would be a time that indicates really learned wisdom, like being able to sort of take all of the chaos and all of the ridiculousness of life and sort of like categorize it and uh what's
Hmm.
the word I'm looking for? Just take stock of all of the chaos and really embody the lessons from it.
I also
Sounds good.
think that
Yeah.
especially after you were saying that no one was doing what you were doing at the time with perfume, that's
Hmm.
very Uranian. It's forward thinking, doing things that no one else has ever done before, being like a revolutionizing whatever it may be, whether it's astrology or perfume.
Well, with the emblems as well. Now, the emblems have been not heard of in 400 years. And
Wow.
my book, The Symbolorum, I got translated from Latin, so no one had ever even read it. And then turning it into the book that it is now, it just wasn't on the planet. And I decided that I was going to do that. Much like I when I wrote Essence and Alchemy, no one had connected alchemy to perfume until I
Hmm.
wrote that book, which I wrote almost 30 years ago.
Which is
Which seems
So,
so
like so it seems like a no-brainer though. Like alchemy and perfume, you're creating these potions that are going to create some kind of maybe feeling or emotion
Mhm.
or scent to me always takes me back to places that I've forgotten about sometimes, it's amazing.
but alchemy was not in common conversation. So I've been studying alchemy for a while, and then when I got into perfume, which was 30 years ago, I made the connection and then took the stages of alchemy and applied them to perfume in that book. That's what goes on in that book, which I wrote 30 years ago, got published in 17 languages, and I revised it 2 years ago
Wow.
again. So but anyways, that was me.
So
Wow.
powerful. It is such a beautiful book. It's so fun to read through. And I just love that I'll forever have this to reference for herbs and fragrances and essences. You know, like I love roses. I love the smell of rose,
Mhm.
and just the feeling of rose. And so being able to reference rose in here with all of everything you wrote with that. But I guess we can move on from your birth chart. I'm really curious
She gets
to
fragrant. Mhm.
hear about everything that's happening behind you.
Oh, here? You mean this?
Yes,
This
yes.
thing?
Yes.
Oh, well,
Wow.
we're in my studio. This is my perfume organ. I'm gonna talk and point. These are the bass notes. The ones that have been in man's spiritual life since the beginning of time. If you see them, you see they're kind of dark and heavy. These are them. This is where I work. Then right behind me here, these orange ones. Those are the middle notes, which make up the body of the perfume. So those are more like flowers and spices and things like that. And then the yellow ones over there, yellow labels with the yellow labels. Those are top notes, and those are the first things you smell. They're the most, in a certain way, superficial. They move down in depth, and then we're in this room. This is can't see the window. This is where I work. 1 minute, let me move my microphone. This is those are books, but the very old books, the books that are 100 to 400 years old, they're all in the museum.
Mm.
But here's the rest of it. That's a sink. And then, would you open those up there? Those are where the bottles are, where I make things up in that area,
Wow.
where all the bottles are, and where the perfumes, they age. I have my perfumes aging in those cupboards. And then I don't know how we're going to get here, Foster. I was going to go over there. Oh, okay. Here I go. Then there's this. Oh, he's carrying it over here. This is a
Wow.
Chinese herbal apothecary chest, and there's names of Chinese medicines on them. And in here are like finished perfumes. I don't know if you can see those.
Wow.
Or there's, oops, let me see where there's bottles, like bottles of things that I use. Then here, oops, this is the most fun drawer. I make solid perfumes in antique cases. So this is one of chestnuts. I don't know if you can see that.
Wow. That's
It's an
beautiful.
old watch.
Oh,
This is another old watch. I search for these all over. So people buy solid perfumes from me in these antique cases.
wow.
Or they also get them in these cases, which I have made for me. And then they send them back when they're empty, and I redo them again. I don't know if you can see
Wow,
this.
it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And I have all my supplies are here. I also have these very beautiful bags that I had made by disabled people in Vietnam, and they're lined. I'm purple and orange all the
Wow.
way. That's what these are. Anyways, it's all filled with my stuff and my
Wow.
products, which look sort of like this. This is a chocolate body oil. It looks like a lava lamp, actually, when you get it going.
Wow.
Anyway, these are my things. That's what's here.
Very
That's
cool.
incredible. Thank you for sharing that. It looks like such a magical place to work out of.
It is a totally magical place to work out of. I feel
Especially in Berkeley. Oh,
very fortunate. And then down my driveway is my museum, which
Mhm.
has another organ, this is called a perfume organ. It's a slightly smaller version of this. Not as This one has a lot more than the one in the museum.
The one in the museum is so cool too. That was such a fun experience for me to go to. Highly recommend a visit out to the museum. It was
Thank you.
so cool. So many fun little things to explore, old books to read, and things to smell. It was such a fun experience.
Lots of witchy books.
Yes,
Lots of very interesting witchy material from the 16th century, 16th and 17th century.
it's
Wow.
true. It was fun. I could have spent the whole day there.
And also they're original, because I feel like the transmission from a really old book to a person is so important to me, that everyone gets to touch and read and hold all the really old books. Nothing's a reproduction.
Wow.
Incredible.
You'll have to come.
I
I'll go
know
with
I
you.
want to so bad. When I don't have when I stop working weekends, that's the first thing on my list.
That's a date.
Yeah. So, Mandy, can you tell us a little bit about well, first, I guess, can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your life before perfume, and then just kind of what led you and pushed you into the direction of perfumery?
Well, I was born in Detroit in a very conventional family, and spent the first 20 years of my life in Michigan. I went to college in Ann Arbor. I went to college in Michigan. And uh, I wouldn't say I exactly fit in to the environment that I was in. It was um, very kind of conformist in a way. And I just wasn't that way from the very beginning. I just wasn't. Um, and so earlier I was like a beatnik, and then I was a hippie, and then I came to California when I was around 20, and I was very 21, and I loved California. Like the minute I got to Northern California, I thought, this is it. This is the best place on earth as far as I was concerned. I just wasn't very happy there, and had various ups and downs. I went to school in textiles for a while, learned to weave, which I still do. I'm very interested in textiles. And then ended up deciding to write a biography of a rock and roll star, Brian Jones, which I did. And I went to live in Joshua Tree, and then I interviewed many people in the world of the Rolling Stones. And along the way, kind of my life took place. And I had a degree in counseling from Michigan before I left. And I decided I wanted to work with creative people, and I did. I was in private practice for many, many years here uh, in Berkeley, and along, very fast forward, and I loved it. I loved the people I saw. I loved learning about lives that were my own. I loved hearing the stories about lives. And I wrote a book about that called The Story of Your Life. Because when you're a therapist, people tell you stories. And when you read fiction, you read stories. So it was about how stories are constructed orally and in therapy, and then also how they're constructed um, when people are really artfully making a story. And I was very interested in how you figure things out in a story. So I did that. And after that was over, I decided I was going to write a novel and make my main character a perfumer for no reason whatsoever. And I decided I would do research because I had loved research for my Brian Jones book. So I'm into research, and I'm into a very deep dive. So I started with old books, which you at that time, because we're going back 30 years, almost before the internet, I would go to book fairs and bookstores with a little list of books that I wanted about perfume. And I was teaching myself about perfume. Basically, I was only interested in naturals. I knew that the commercial world was synthetic, and I was only interested in naturals because they had that connection with human beings that synthetics don't have, with rituals, with sexuality, with birth, with death, with food, all the good stuff in every culture were just encapsulated into those materials. So that's what I thought, I'm going to learn about that. I took a little class an aromatherapy place where you could make a little perfume. And because I was still researching my novel, and I was a little bit good at it, but I was also completely blown away by the materials. Like I fell in love with the materials. I had gone with a friend, and she had said, "Oh, let's start a perfume business together." So we did. and we were the first natural perfume line in the world. We launched at Bergdorf Goodman's, which is a very fancy store in New York, and I made all the perfumes. And then the
Wow.
perfume business and the friendship fell apart really fast, and I
Oh.
was back out of it. And by then, obsessive personality that I am, I had lots of books, I had the oils, and I could not let go. So at that point, the person I had written my book, Story of Your Life, for said, "Why don't you write a book for me on perfume?" So I wrote Essence and Alchemy from what I understood and what I had made, and from all my research into alchemy. I wrote that book long ago, and then from there, it kind of just took over my life. I'd say this is a very short version, and where I'm still doing all the stuff. Kind of, I was doing then. I teach people to make perfume. I write books. I've written 4 or 5. I collaborated with a fantastic chef, Daniel Patterson, because I have a line of essences that are for cooking. I did 2 cookbooks with him.
Oh.
He has 2 Michelin stars. He's a really fantastic chef, but he makes food like I make perfume. So we had a lot of our creative process in common. And then fast forward to 10 years ago, I had a lot of stuff I had collected, and it was really fun. Um, when I got a book, I sometimes could get a postcard or a picture or an oil that was 100 years old. What I was collecting, no one was interested in. So it was really fun and really cheap, and you just felt like you were, I don't know what, like the first person into some territory that no one had been in. It was just
Mhm.
the wild west of getting things, and I got them. I just, somebody had something, and I got a reputation. So if someone had stuff, and they like a stash or books or they'd come to me, I'd buy them. So I had half of what's in the museum in my house, all over my house. And so about 10 years ago, no, it must have been longer actually. I can't because I think we've been open 10 years. I'm not positive of the years. But I said to Foster, we were standing in some really kind of funky museum in the gold country, which just had some weird, interesting stuff in it. And I said to him, "I think I can do this." And he said, "What?" I said, "I think we should open a museum," which was just such a crazy statement. And so he went along with it. And I had been showing all the stuff I had to people, and I thought they were interested. I wasn't positive because, you never know if people are just being polite and they walk away and go, "Oh my God,
Sure.
when's she going to stop?" But, anyways, I did. We went forward, and my husband and my son for 3 years making this museum. And I had a good amount of stuff, but I think the most frequent sentence was, people go to school for this and we do not know what we're doing. So we made it for us. We made it exactly the way we would have liked it to be for us.
Mm.
And it miraculously turned out so beautiful and so special. We're sold out almost every weekend. We
Wow.
have thousands of visitors. We're only open one day, and we've grown. We had to figure out what to do about COVID, and we expanded some stuff. And as we went on, I got some more expensive things that I had my eye on but couldn't afford. But as I could afford them, I got 6 16th century herbals with all the
Mm.
witchy stuff in it. They're got the virtues after the plant, which is all the uses and all that. 3 different really famous ones. I got a book of secrets from 1595 from an alchemist. I just have all this stuff in there that's absolute magic to me. And along the way, I found the Symbolorum in this completely haphazard, strange, magical way, which is how I ended up writing this book, which I
Mm.
can say how that happened or skip it. But anyways, that's the version of that.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And it sounds like these things found you. It sounds like these were more things that were maybe forgotten or, put away, not fully recognized for their worth, and we're just kind of waiting for somebody like you to come along and give them new life.
And I loved it. I thought everything was so magic and beautiful, and I loved being around it. And when I wrote Essence and Alchemy, the world I wrote about didn't exist. It just existed in my head. I kind of pulled in all the stuff I loved about perfume and magic and alchemy and just plunked it down in that book. And the museum for me felt like the world of Essence and Alchemy brought to life. Like all the stuff I had researched, there it all was. And
Ugh,
so it was
Wow.
very exciting to me.
I love that. I love that. And you mentioned how you worked with the chef because he approaches food and cooking the way that you approach making perfumes. Can you talk a little more about what do you how do you approach making perfumes? Does it feel, I mean, obviously you wrote this book on alchemy and perfumery. I'm assuming it feels very spiritual to you, like a spiritual practice to make perfume. Can you expand a little on that?
It's very spiritual, but I'm very nuts and bolts too. I teach, and so I'm very grounded in structure. It isn't just put a whole bunch of stuff in a bottle and call it a perfume.
Interesting.
And I talked with Mauricio about this when I did an event with him. Um, I've developed the way I work with this artistic palette in terms of how to work with these materials to get something beautiful. Because in general, this palette was abandoned when commercial perfume came along.
Hmm.
So for many, many reasons. So it wasn't really in play in that time. Um, Daniel and I um, wrote this cook what wrote the last book we wrote together was called The Art of Flavor, and it's all about principles about how to create food. And Daniel actually came up with 4 rules about how to create food, which I use in my class, and it was him who came up with it. It doesn't explain that much of how I create, but it gives you some idea. He was looking at all the recipes he had done. He had a 3-star Michelin restaurant in San Francisco called Qua, and now he's opening a restaurant in Los Angeles. But he said, and it was true for me as well, first of all, I always start with 2 essences and a feeling. So every single perfume I make is a conversation between 2 materials that are usually far apart. Can you give me the wheel? Far apart in their sense of smell and a guiding feeling that I'm trying to
Hmm.
capture. And far apart means I have this wheel that I made. It's a natural perfume wheel. I probably have it upside down. And so ones that are not in the same area, the ones that are in the same area have similar smells, like
Hmm.
all of the sweet spices like ginger and cardamom and cinnamon and allspice. They're all in this little area here. So it isn't, I'm not going to pick 2 from there. So I picked 2 and a feeling, and the perfume encapsulates that for me, and that's very structured. Then after I have the 2 and some other things as well, things that he had brought up which were important was if you have things that are very near each other, you have to provide a contrast. Or if you have things that are very far apart, you need a bridge. Or if you have essences that are very light, you need to ground them. Or if you
Hmm.
have essences that are grounded, you need to lift them. That's just one piece. But for me, each perfume is a particular design problem that is not, so I have the intention and I have the understanding. But when I make a perfume, it's up to me through the various iterations to find all the design problems and solve them. So each one is like a narrative or a set of uh, problems that are revealed as you solve the first one. And that's how I teach and that's how I work until there are no more problems to be solved. And you have to solve them very slowly. My kind of perfume, the perfume I teach, is called slow scent, of which I am on the trademark on.
Hmm.
So you go very slowly, moving one area, the top, the middle, or the base, looking for the design problems and fixing them, and then more are revealed. So it's a very magical process and it's very structured.
Wow.
I think
That's
I
Wow.
wrote some about it in this book, which is one you don't have, which is one
that's
I
true.
love. It's called Fragrant. I
Cool.
just reissued this one in paperback, and it follows 5 iconic ingredients mint, jasmine, cinnamon, ambergris, and who did I forget? Frankincense. And
That's so
they're
cool.
talismans for 5 different experiences. This one.
That's awesome. That sounds so, it sounds kind of like you're almost working with the perfume as like a sculpture that's revealing itself the more that you like sort of chip away at it, as opposed to like feeling like you're the one crafting it. It seems like you're the one revealing it. Does that feel?
Well, both. There's a lot of wrong moves in for me with writing and with perfume that you make to find the right ones. So it's the process of working on it to me is the most interesting part of it. I just released a perfume in December called Patchouli Noir. And I started in on it because I source over 100 botanicals that I sell to other perfumers. So I shop all over the world and have forever and buy from little growers. And I had run out of my patchouli and I had really good patchouli. And for each natural essence, there really, really is a difference in quality. There's an
Mm.
enormous difference of quality. And if you start with really high quality, you have a running head start to make a good perfume. So I'd run out of my patchouli and had loved it. And I went back to the person I bought it from and they sent me samples. They were dreadful, and they said odd things to me like, send us yours back and we'll make one like it, which I thought like, probably not going to be so natural. So I started out in the world, which is a typical thing for me, calling in a lot of samples of patchouli to see, and the range was enormous. So I started into this absolute deep dive into patchouli, which I had no intention of doing. It was not even in my mind to do it, but I did. And along the way, I got just completely fascinated by patchouli and ended up thinking I only do one perfume a year, that I would do one
Mm.
centered on patchouli. So what I did in that perfume was I knew I wanted uh, to smoke it out with something called pine tar, which is to me the absolutely most drop dead gorgeous form of smoke that there is in a bottle. So I knew it was that, but I also knew because I had been exploring all the facets of patchouli, the woody, the musky, the fruity, the boozy, that I was going to want to just pull them out as far as I could. So I began to study each of them and start to add on and start to shape it. And I also used 4 different kinds of patchouli because I have them. I had patchouli absolute, patchouli essential oil, patchouli acetate, which is a natural molecule in patchouli, very transparent, and 100-year-old patchouli, which I have, which is over here on my organ. I had managed to get a bottle that was aged 100 years, and I put it in the perfume
Wow.
too. So it was really fun.
Wow. That sounds so cool and so uh just like so much work, so much detailed, focused attention. It makes sense that it takes you, or not that it takes you, but that you spend a year for each fragrance.
I kind of want to refer back to her birth chart for just 1 second, if it's okay. Do you want me to pull it up, or should I just say what I'm
Say it
thinking?
because it looks like I have no idea what's on there, and so I have no understanding. I bet
Well,
your listeners do.
I was just thinking about her Uranus in the eighth house,
Mm.
because I was trying to, put put that together for what Mandy's doing, and it makes perfect sense because she's revolutionizing things that have been left from others.
Mm-hmm.
And the eighth house is, usually it has to do with like inheritance and other people's money, but
Yeah.
but it's all of these things that you've inherited from many, many, many other people from all over the world that you're revolutionizing in a way and showcasing as well. So now her eighth house Uranus and Gemini too, because
Yeah.
communicating it to a lot of different people makes perfect sense. So
Oh, good. I do
yeah,
feel like I stumble on buried treasure on a pretty regular basis. I really do, and
it's your
just
destiny.
love that experience.
Yeah. That is really interesting, and thinking about just a quick reference to somebody we interviewed previously who also has eighth house placements, Becca, who also is writing a biography for somebody. And I wonder about the connection of biography writers to eighth house placements, because that is exactly that inherited sort of information and giving it new life. That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
totally.
Um, before we move on to the Symbolorum, which I'm so excited to dive into with you and hear all about it,
Me
I
too.
have to ask, I read about you being Leonard Cohen's personal perfumer.
I was
Uh,
wondering when you were going to ask that, Jenna. I'm dying to know.
You want to get the picture in the other room? Yeah, the little one, it's the hat. Yes, for
Can I ask
20
first,
years.
how does one become a personal perfumer, or what does that entail?
Well, I don't know. It just happened. I don't know.
You like your stuff more than anyone else.
He liked my stuff. He just liked my stuff. And we just had a very long 20 years, had a very long connection. I think to some extent too, I was never, uh, eager to meet him. I didn't want to do the normal things that normal people do. And it grew over time, you know, it grew, the connection grew over time. I made a perfume that he loved. I made some things he really loved. And I was completely a fan. I am a fan, a complete fan of him and his work. I thought he was um, just wise beyond words, talented beyond words, a major North Star for me in my life, had given so much into my life. When I first sent him some things I'd made and they got there, and he responded to me, I was shocked. I kind of just wanted to give something back, because his work had meant so much to me. And in the years that I made things and for him, um, I never could really accept any payment, because I felt he had given so much to me that I didn't really want to be paid. And it caused a lot of problems because he really wanted to pay. And every once in a while, I would let him pay. But in general, we did gifts. So I was going to hold up. This is one gift. It's a print. It's a print from him. And this is a very early one. This one is from 2009. It's how
Wow.
far back, but I have many others too. It says it was the hat after all. He did prints and he sent them to me. He sent me lots of things, but it says to Mandy with love, Leonard. And I have many. I have many,
Wow.
many, many, many gifts all over my house from him. And it was a privilege. It's just a privilege, to make stuff for him and celebrate his birthday and the holidays. And he was a great man. He was a great, great, great man. I fragranced his funerals, both of them. So I was very involved, uh, and still very involved in my head with him.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's incredible. And what another synchronistic moment. All of those grand trines in your chart, all of those, you have two kind of grand trines in your chart, and all of those are showing up a lot in the way that you're talking about how, I don't know, it just happened. Um, so
Sorry.
that's okay. But yeah,
Please, right here.
the
I look,
feeling
I
of,
look like I have a very busy chart, and I remember someone once said I had a lot going on in my chart. That it was
yeah,
very major, my chart in some way, but I don't know what they were talking about.
Well, a lot we people with grand trines in their chart and kite patterns in their chart are considered very lucky. Like the energy just flows harmoniously for you. It's not this area of your life, work, your reputation, being in the spotlight in some ways, what you value. and what you create over here. It all is just everything's flowing harmoniously between everything.
I feel very lucky. I feel very lucky in to be able to do work that I love and believe in. I just feel, and that I'm, have had um, as much support from the world about it. It just seems miraculous to me.
Hmm.
Your authenticity just shines through. So to me, it's just, of course, you're amazing. And of course, you've had this amazing life.
Yeah.
But when I go out and look at the museum, which you haven't come to, you'll have to come, but Jenna's been there. I look at it, and I see, because we have so many visitors, that they love it and they're very impressed with it. I am too. Even though we all made it, it just feels to me like it was this gift. I must sound daffy, but
Not at all.
I do just look at it and wonder where it came from. Where did all that stuff come from? I just feel very lucky things visited me.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the biggest, not the biggest, but a really potent thing that I immediately felt from you was your excitement for what you do, and how much you love what you do and how passionate you are about it, which I think that goes such a long way. Like, being so passionate about what you do, right? So many people take on this air of like an unbotheredness, or like, this sort of coyness about your expertise, and you have just this pure passion and excitement about it that's really refreshing, and I think it's just something that
Thank
I
you.
personally want to see more of and support.
It's
Thank you.
inspiring.
Thank you. I do genuinely feel that way. I feel like maybe coming from all those years too of being a psychotherapist, I love that too. Um, I felt love and work were the two big things, to be able to, which Freud thought too. Um, if you can find work that really speaks to your soul, and you really have a tiny, tiny group of little people that you love and they love you back. I thought, like, that's the best. That's
Mm.
just, and to be able to work. I always admired artists that did work they really believed in. I always thought that was a wonderful way to do your life.
Venus in Aries in her sixth house, loving work, loving relationships and work and beauty.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
amazing.
I'm very old and I'm still working. I don't, I mean, one day I won't be able to work, but boy, I love work. I
Hmm.
love work every day. I do.
Amazing.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, Coco and I are with you on the work that is inspiring, and holding to that which
See
lights
that?
you up, and devoting your life to it. We're right there with you on that.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
So let's shift into the Symbolorum. Yes, I have my copy right here for reference. Thank you
I
so
need a
much.
copy.
It is so, first of all, it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. It's so lovely. It's been on my altar space because it just feels like an altar book. Um,
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah.
yeah, you've talked a little bit about where it came from, but can you give us a little more info on like what an emblem book is, and what exactly this emblem book is, where you found it, how it found you?
So I found it in the weirdest way. I mean, like everything. I mean, sometimes I feel like um, I'm just on some pipeline of something. I was reading this book called I think the Craftsman's Floral Design book, some very odd book. And there was one line about other design books. It was from like 100 years ago. And they mentioned this book called the Symbolorum and Emblematum. And one line, it wasn't even anything important, but I thought, oh, symbolorum, I love symbols. What's that mean? And then I always, like a bloodhound, I always go right down the road toward what I'm interested in. So I, make a very long story short. I found it. I found it online. I started to look at the pictures. It blew my mind. This is the book. I have the real book in front of me from the 1600s. It looks
Wow.
like this. Here's my hand. So you can see
Wow.
it's not very big. And what it is, I'll be okay. What it is 400 illustrations. So my book has 100. 100 of plants, 100 of what they call quadrupeds, which include all mythic creatures. Birds, 100 birds, 100 fish. So what it has is these very small pictures. I don't know if you can see this little guy here.
Mm.
Wow.
They're little, and then it has a title. This is a typical emblem book. It has a title, a couplet, and writing. Oops, sorry, I'm not doing this well. And
Oh,
then
that's
writing on the side, and the whole thing is written either in ancient Greek or in. Oh, this is such a great one. This is a poor bird is being pecked at by the others. They're all mad at him. Anyways, they made the pictures as narrative and magical and memorable as possible because there weren't so many books, so things were a lot about memory. So it grabs you. You look at it, and I just looked at it and I thought, I gotta know what's going on. So I did, which was crazy on my part. I got it translated, all of it. I started at the beginning because I wanted to know what it was saying there because I couldn't make out anything. I mean, it was the kind of thing where you put your camera on it, and between the Greek, these letters, I mean, I don't know, ancient Greek, and then the Latin, it was like my phone was having a heart attack. Like nothing made any sense at all. So I decided that I was going to get it translated, and I did, and it was fabulous. The guy who wrote it was really knowledgeable, as people were. They were kind of humanist, and they were quoting Ovid, who had all the myths about transformation. They were quoting Aristotle and a lot of people I didn't know. So I got the whole book translated. And then I loved the pictures so much. Just during COVID, I taught myself to do watercolors and blew them up, and because I wanted to get into them and see them more. I mean, it was just one thing after another. And then I was already doing my book Museum of Scent with Abbeville, and they do a lot of medieval old marvelous books like bestiaries. They're an incredibly beautiful publisher. So he knew what an emblem book was. So I said, "Oh, I have this, I want to do something with this book." And he said, "Let's do it." So the book just came like everything else, one step and then another step, and I didn't really have a plan. And in the end, I had done so many pictures and had it translated. I picked the 100 I liked the best, and we put it in this little book. So this little book, and one of the things I was struck by was this is one little picture. This is the cover one. And of course, it's kind of about the pineal gland, and it's about such mystical stuff. Um, but it also had perfume ingredients in it. You can see this is an incense censer. These are roses. And they always had these little heads. I don't know if you can see them blowing everything around, or people going up to the skies and heavens. So, and here's some mythic folks. Here is what's that thing who gets its head cut off? The Hydra, the 10-headed Hydra. This is, and they believe this too, by the way. This is a uh, eagle fighting with a dragon, and this is a merman over here. But the thing I was very much struck by was how much it looked like the tarot.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a lot of cards that looked like the tarot, including a magic wand because they have hands in the sky. And I just couldn't get back out. I got in and I just couldn't get back out. And for me, when I had the museum and started to be able to afford these older books that I had read about in my research, but they were these amazing ones, they just deepened my perfume practice. It's stuff I had intuited about what I was doing, only working with natural essences and working in an artisanal way, which is different than how other people work at times. I just felt the books gave this foundation of this view of nature that people had kind of up to the 1700s, and then it disappeared. So I was learning about my practice as I had the museum, as I had these books, and even the Symbolorum was very tied into what I was doing as a perfumer.
Mm.
But I felt guided. I felt I got there, and all of a sudden, this stuff made more sense to me. But it wasn't a plan. If that does that make sense?
Yeah.
100%. Yes, Jen and I completely understand. It's like you're following your soul's purpose, and thank goodness that you did because, yeah, a lot of things, the world became disenchanted during the scientific revolution and enlightenment, and we need meaning, we need something to believe in, and it's beautiful, and it's just beautiful.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
the emblem books really were on the edge of that. The emblem books were a little bit like dinosaurs; they got extinct.
Oh,
But what
interesting.
would happen with that old view of nature, and I know both of you know this, before the scientific revolution, which is where a lot of my books come from, that
Mm.
period, and for me, natural perfume comes from that too. When they had an animal or they had a plant or they did something, they had all the myths, all the fables. It wasn't just, it's this long and this wide and it eats this thing. And there was a lot of, say, misinformation because it was rooted in folk wisdom. And, in one town, they call this plant one thing, and in another town, they call it something else. And for this kind of accuracy in bean counting, they lost all the magic and the poetry. So
Mm.
all those old books that I have and all the stuff I work with, it's rooted in that. So
Yeah.
that's the substance to me of these essences. These essences to me call back to that time. And you're working with, this pure, gorgeous, multi-layered essence of
Mm-hmm.
that magic. So it's very special.
Mm-hmm. It
It is.
sounds like you work with archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yep,
sounds like.
exactly. Which is
Mhm.
astrology, which is what astrology is all about.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know if you remember, Jenna, like in one of our classes, the Book of Nature, didn't we look at a little portion of an emblem book that had to do with like mystical creatures and stuff?
Definitely. We
Yeah.
definitely did. And I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Is it Alciati? Was it Alciati?
Um,
Book of Emblems?
I don't think
mm,
so. It was,
it
oh
was
my
our first
goodness.
semester. It was our first class in our first semester. So we'll have to
Tell me what when you if we,
yeah,
write back,
Yeah.
tell me what the name was. I'm curious which one it was.
Oh, I
definitely.
can't believe that I'm forgetting the name of it. But yeah, we did. Had a course called the Book of Nature that was a study of
Wonderful.
essentially what you're referring to, which is like humans' relationship to nature and what that word really means throughout all of recorded history and how
Right.
it's been influenced by different religious texts and traditions, and how our relationship to the land has shifted as our mythology of the land has shifted. And yeah, one of our first texts was an emblem book.
You'll tell me.
I will,
Yeah.
I will, I'll figure it out. I don't know why it's slipping my mind right now. But that is so fascinating. So you talked about the similarities between the Symbolorum and tarot. Do you Was it used in a similar way? And do you intend to use it in a similar way? Like, is there a deck, a Symbolorum deck of cards?
Yeah, I'm making an Oracle deck right now as we speak, and it's gonna come out in the fall.
So
So,
Amazing.
cool.
because I cannot seem to leave this, I mean, I barely could leave it at all, and I really wanted to make a deck, and it's really interesting. It's a combination of me and him, the writing, because it's not exactly a deck, so I'm adding in stuff from my own writing and from my own past, both as a psychotherapist and all the things that I've done. So it's really fun, and it's another set of 60 of them. Um, and the design is rocking. I mean, we're
Hmm.
just hammering out the design, and they're really going to be beautiful. Um, I feel like the tarot lasted through time, and it has a very specific structure, with the four suits and those kind of gendered cards too at the top, the
Mhm.
king, the queen, the whatever. And those meanings in those places are set. This is more like what the person who wrote this one is more like what the person who wrote the book um, thought about and was interested in. And they took a lot of, I like it better myself, because they took the stories from animals. So they had a fact about an animal's life, some behavior they did. They took it from Plutarch a lot, from ancient Greece,
Mm.
or from some other people where the animals did certain things and they made them into a story, or they made them more like Aesop's fables, which they also took stuff from.
Mm.
So I find it's mine in particular. Others are very religious. There are a lot of them that are super religious. My guy was the pinnacle of this. I mean, his was the most interesting one, of what he had to say, his view of the world. And a lot of it is just more kind of age-old wisdomy stuff. And the pictures were meant to be arresting, and the person who did to stay in your memory and to grab you. So you'd look at them. Whereas in the tarot, a lot of the pictures across the decks are the same. These you've never seen. I mean, you've never seen these before.
Right.
It's
I mean,
true. I can
so
attest.
they're just here's one. Just I just looked at them and said, I gotta know what's going on.
Ugh, they're so amazing.
I do not know what's going on. And I cleaned them up and we did that. And the stuff about the animals is just phenomenal. I mean, they're really very interesting stories that are applicable to humans, but humans aren't in them.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say that I really love about it, and what you're talking about in us needing to like reconnect with our relationship to nature in
Yes.
a like pre-enlightenment way. The fact that none of these have humans in them, at least not any human faces, it seems, right? None of them.
No, they sometimes have like this little, because you have no idea how little they are. Sometimes I have like a little figure in the background that looks like that. They almost never have humans. And
Yeah,
that's part of this particular thing. I think, but the dilemmas are all human. You know,
yeah,
they're very human, or they're ones we can identify with in a very kind of uh, sort of everyone has it like deeply human experience sort of way. We've had those experiences, and I'm seeing those on the cards
yeah.
too. And when I'm making the cards about just things that go on in life for everybody.
Like
Yes, yeah. I love.
human archetypal, human primordial archetypal influences or figures that have been around since the beginning of time.
In situations and
Mhm.
situations and experiences. And also, I mean, one of the lines I wrote in the introduction, which I'm sure I'm going to mess up right now. Maybe just give me 1 second. Maybe I'll find it, but I doubt
Yeah.
it. Was one of my favorite lines that I wrote in here. I talked a lot about, um, it's something like, um, that the reason these speak to us so much is because all the problems that people have, guess what? We're still having them. Things aren't so different now. In the last 400 years, really, in terms of our life experiences at the deep level, we're still having the same problems. You
Yeah.
know, it's not and humans cause them. Humans cause them. I mean, these aren't the problems, where there's a flood, and the town gets wiped out. These are just the stuff we do in our lives to cause chaos and problems. We're still doing it. We haven't learned how to not do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say that I love the fact that it's all like nature symbolism. It urges you to see with a new lens, to connect these feelings to something beyond human. It actively helps us to animate and to enchant
Completely agree.
the natural world again when you,
Well, and hopefully it helps us to understand that we are the natural world, that we don't need to connect to nature. We are nature.
yeah,
Right, right. No, and also you can learn and observe from the smallest things. So in the symbolorms, for example, let's say the quadrupeds, which start out, I think, with an elephant. They start with the biggest ones, but by the end, they're like a little teeny tiny thing. So they start with little things, and one of the things in there is we can learn from little things, like little animals, little birds, little whatever, little fish. They have life stories too. What?
Squirrel.
Squirrel. One of my favorites is the squirrel, who's just, or the turtle. They have little, everything's not like I'm a lion, I'm a tiger, I'm a god. There's these like little tiny things with life lessons for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I'm kind of curious. I want to try some bibliomancy.
Yes.
You mentioned being open to that. Would you want to walk us through a little bibliomancy right now? We can give the viewers, the listeners, a little demonstration.
Oh, I think just opening it to a page and seeing what you get and see where you are. I marked off two that are my favorites because I sometimes get asked that, so I could do those before just because I like those. I put a little
Sure.
bookmark in, so I can do those. And then let's just open and see,
Yeah,
see
I'm
where we are.
curious.
So I'll tell you what page because you have the book, and also you may hold it up better than I do. Okay.
Sure.
So this I think will be very revealing given my chart and everything else. I hadn't like thought about this, but this is very real for me, this one. And it's the one on page 127. I'll hold it up, but I don't know, I do such a great job. There's a turtle going up a mountain, and there are three swans at the top of the mountain, this turtle, and it says, the slow tortoise follows swift swans. Is there anywhere constant hard work cannot reach? So I feel very identified myself. It says we see a tortoise. This is me. So in this book, this is the stuff written by Camerarius on the here, and then the notes are me researching all the symbols and adding to information about the symbols, which is wonderful because symbols mean 80 million different things no matter where they are. So what I wrote about this is we see a tortoise climbing a hill that many swans have gotten to the top first, but the tortoise perseveres. Slow and steady wins the race. In many spiritual traditions, the tortoise stands for endurance, longevity, stability, and patience. The swan is a highly complex symbol standing for death and transformation, since according to fable, swans sing a song of unearthly beauty right before their death. So I tried to put in some symbolic stuff that might thrill people. So I see myself as the turtle. That is me in my life, just climbing up the hill slowly.
See, Jenna, you just got to be like a turtle.
And then I love this one, which is very cool. It is on page 176, which you're going to be 77. And it is a crow. It's a crow. This is such a cool story. Crows are really smart, and this is an urn, and it's got water in it, and the crow wants to drink the water, so he puts lots of rocks in there so the water gets up to the top and he can drink. So I love this one. And it says the power and skill of a crow's mind are wonderful. And nature, and teach us how great nature is everywhere. And so I love that because they're cunning and they're smart and they figure out how to get something for themselves. So, they also are so cunning that if they find a nut is too hard, they drop it so they can open it up. So I just love the wisdom that they have. It's just makes life amazing.
Yes.
So Jenna, you open it to a page. Let's see what you get, then I'll open one.
All right. See what wisdom do I need to learn to hear today? We'll go. Oh, I do not know how to pronounce this.
Pleasure is fleeting. Yeah.
Yes.
What page you on? Tell me.
I'm on page 60, 61.
Okay.
Caduca voluptas.
Yeah, I wouldn't even give it a try. Yes, 61. But tell them, why don't you read it to the people who are listening? Yeah.
So it says, this rose 100-fold flower has fallen. So in life, all beauty soon perishes. And it's this beautiful photo of these flowers that seem to be losing some petals. Well, one of them is losing petals. It seems like maybe the different phases of the growth. So there's one
Yes.
that's like just budding, and then two that seem to be fully blossomed and thriving, and then one that's losing its petals.
So would you read the notes part that I wrote about that particular one out loud for all of us? Yeah.
Yes. It says, here the rosebush reminds us that life and beauty are both short, and even with all the petals that a peony possesses, it blooms quickly and then loses all its petals. A withered rose symbolizes the transitoriness of life and a lament for the brevity of joy. Roses remind us that there is value in things that are brief and fragile, and even the most fleeting moment can be beautiful and meaningful.
So does
I
that
love
does that resonate at all for you about anything?
Definitely. And I think the fact that I mentioned roses earlier, and just how much I love roses and how delicate roses are. Just, I think it's just a nice reminder of like I think I sometimes get so stuck in this pressure and this like grand image and the grand idea of like, you know, I'll be happy and everything will work out when I have this big grand image of things. Like I have this big thing that I'm climbing up the hill toward, like the tortoise climbing up the mountain. But this is, a nice reminder of like it's also about those flowers and those things that you find along the way. It's about every small little moment that has the beauty in it.
Yes, yes. I in my museum is in my backyard, and I grow over 100 roses, which I just cut down. I've been out there pruning them, but they're a part of the experience, and I spend a lot of time watching the roses' life cycle. I'm very completely fascinated by them out there, and the whole idea how short it really is, and it goes through these phases once it starts up. I find it amazing. I cannot even, to me, it's magic that they're going to come back. I was
Mm.
saying to Foster this morning, I can't believe they left, and I can't believe they're going to come back. They just the whole movement of how things change is completely fascinating. I'm
Yes.
going to pull one for me to see
Yes.
what wisdom or what I need for today. I got to make sure I don't hit the little whatever it is here. Okay. This says through an unfamiliar path. I've got this big guy right here.
Cool.
I've got this big, what is it, Foster? What is
Like
this?
a ram.
Ibex. He's an ibex.
Oh.
That's what that thing is called, an ibex. What family is he in? Is he in the sheep?
Like a big sheep.
He's like a big sheep. And he's got horns and stuff. Difficult virtue had its peak in an inaccessible mountain. Are you heading here? Much sweat rises you high. The ibex on the mountain symbolizes that virtue is a difficult path. A mountain-dwelling hermit, the ibex is sure-footed climber associated with superiority. It scrambles nimbly up craggy rocks and treacherous mountains. It can use its powerful horns to break its fall when racing down a mountaintop. Like a bird, the ibex can climb so high as to be invisible to the human eye. I feel like this is very in keeping with what you're telling me about my chart. I feel
Yep,
like this is
me too.
really completely connected to what you said about the chart, this animal and me. So it's familiar. It's very familiar at this point, and particularly from our conversation. It's just wonderful.
I love
It
that.
is. I have to say, Mandy, your just enthusiasm for just the beauty in the world is like so amazing. And it's just such an honor to meet you and talk to you. And you are so inspiring.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. That's so, I, I'm, I, as a person, because we're talking about me as a person, I don't like a lot of things. And so the stuff I like, I really, really, really like. And I managed to just stay there. I loved being a shrink. I love doing the museum. I love making perfume. I got to write this book. I haven't done a lot of things I didn't want to do. And so it feels so uplifting to be doing it. And my business is such a strange business. It's so unconventional. And so I love my business and I love my customers. And I've just done things in a way that makes sense for me and I've managed. And I feel like, that's going to be one of the cards that I think is really a good thing is
Yeah.
just not listen to other people and follow your own star.
That's good.
Amen
Best
to
advice.
that. Yeah. I 100% agree and relate to that. And I think that's so important for people to hear, especially now, like more than ever right now.
Oh, now.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just so fascinating, so wonderful. And I know we've been talking for a while, so I want to get to wrap it up, but it's hard because there's just so much to talk to you about and to listen.
I could
and
talk to you for hours, Mandy.
It's true. It's true. It makes sense.
Very
It makes sense
fun.
that you're a teacher because there's just you're so full of wisdom and insight and just poetry. I feel like it's so fun to listen to you speak about all of this.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm old and I do teach. And I talk a blue sweet streak when I teach. I teach a few times a year. I teach people to make natural perfume on Zoom. A little tiny class, and I've been teaching people to make perfume for 30 years, and so I only teach that class, but I teach my students to teach my slow scent perfumery class, and they teach that all over the world. My beginning
Wow.
class, and so my Zoom class is a little more advanced.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to kind of get to our closing questions and to wrap up, our podcast is exploring the life of people who seem to embody the archetype of the witch, which is it's essentially just powerful people who go against social norms, societal norms, and follow the calling of their heart. And, these are people who are revolutionary, who are deeply creative and deeply connected to something much greater than themselves. It's, our perception, I think, of the witch has changed in many ways as we've gone throughout this podcast and met so many people and, explored different facets of it. So do you feel that you connect with the archetype of the witch?
I absolutely do. I do. I feel so many things have just come through me that I have no idea where they came from. And I've been so fortunate to have good intuition about many things, not all, and to receive these kind of bonus magical gifts from the universe so many times in my life of I've just been able to live that way. And so I don't feel like I'm particularly special or you know, chosen or something like that, but I do feel I have these extra gifts that I don't know where they came from, and I'm very grateful to them, and I pay a lot of attention to them.
Mm. Well, we're very grateful that you share them and that you pay so much attention to them.
Thank you.
What a beautiful answer. And we're so happy to invite you into our little coven space today.
Well, this has been wonderful. I've just loved meeting both of you, kindred spirits. It's been absolutely wonderful being on your podcast. It's very real. Everything is very real for me that I do. I don't do that much. I did very few things for the book. I like to do things where I can fully be there and fall in love with what I do. And this has been absolutely that for me. So thank you.
The feeling is mutual, Mandy,
Yes.
for sure.
Thank you so much.